Hello and welcome to this edition of Search Sessions. I'm your host, Robin Longes. Throughout this series, we'll be speaking and meeting some of TDA Search's closest partners, customers, leadership advisors, former CEOs, board members, and coaches. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the wonderful Steve Grout. Steve and I have known each other for over a decade. Steve's the former managing director of RAP, the CEO of Target Based Claydon Healy, Tangents Noble, and director of customer and loyalty at the Collinson Group. Steve, welcome.
Hi, good morning, Robin. Good to talk.
Thanks for joining me today. Steve, when you look back over what is an illustrious career of over kind of 30 years, numerous leadership positions, different businesses, sizes, and structures, what are your thoughts on what makes a good leader?
Great question, Robin. I think for me, for great leaders and where I've seen great leadership and tried to do it myself, it's about creating great environments for great talent. What I learned early on in my career, seeing and working with some really good leaders, is that it wasn't all about them. I think, sometimes great leaders think, they have to be the person with the right answer, the person that, makes all the decision. And I think great leaders, actually the people that understand that the strength of the business is the people around them, the people they hire. So it's about identifying young talent, smart talent, different talent that all bring different experiences, different skill, different energies, and actually releasing them. I think it's Steve Jobs. There's a quote that we talk about, don't hire smart people and tell them what to do, you know. And I think, and that for me is really important, is getting great environments, great people, and then releasing them to do their best and to bring their talent and bring their energies. And when you get that, I mean, there's a lot of talk now about diversity and diversity inclusion, but I think for me, and I've seen that over 20 or 30 years, is identifying that and getting those people to work in different ways and complement each other creates great businesses. And that's what I guess what I've always been about and what I've tried to do.
But in terms of kind of releasing that energy, how do you feel you've got the best success out of your teams that where you've been a leader?
I think it's important to create good relationships with people early on. It sounds really obvious, but you don't. I mean, we've all worked in businesses which can be very dictatorial. And what I've tried to do is get to understand where people are comfortable, where they have good strengths, and where they want to work and where they can make an impact. Impacts are important. It's not just what people like to do, but where they have an energy and impact to make a difference. So trying to understand that and then try and get different teams and sub teams together, and then encouraging that. You know, some of the best success I've had is getting maybe sometimes putting someone a bit younger than or less experienced than ideal for a role, but putting them into that and challenging them to that. Yeah, and if you've got great talent and great people, they normally find a way of doing it. I had some really great success with people that other people have said have probably been over promoted. But you know what? The good people rise to that, and they bring a different energy, a vision, a different experience that you couldn't have by maybe making the safe choice. So it's understanding those people, and I used to work quite a lot, but releasing that talent and releasing the energy.
Hmm. Well, we talk quite a lot about kind of cyclical themes that crop up
Yeah,
sometimes every decade. We're going through one
yeah.
now, a huge market downturn. Um, you know, how do you feel that? Do you think that leadership's changed that much? Do you think that themes, that styles have changed that much over the last kind of 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I think they have a bit, and I think Posher touched on it earlier. I think good leaders have always done it, but historically, I think historically leaders, as I just said, were seen to be the person. CEO of an ad agency, you had to be the person that had the answer for everything, right? And you weren't allowed to be seen to be weak or not have the answer. Now, good leaders realised that was bullshit, frankly, but there were too many of those guys like that. We've all seen them stood up at the front of the agency meeting, just telling people this is how it is and this is what you're going to do. Now, there's always a sense that you need a strong direction, strong leadership, good leaders have always understood that they need the good people around them and to get good teams. I think what's happened is, Robin, to be honest, is that we've been through all sorts of different models of leadership, different structures. One year it's matrix leadership, one week it's departmental leadership, one week it's this. I think what we've seen are different models published, and I think there is a move more to consensual leadership and an involvement of almost a group of strong equals, of which one person might be the leader. But perhaps I work with the GC Index, and the playmaker role is critical. The CEO may not be the expert game changer. He may not be the biggest strategist. He may not be the implementer or the polisher. But what we call a playmaker. Playmaker is the person who understands that they get the most of their business out of understanding the strengths and energies of others. And that's where having worked with the GC Index for a minute, I've done some profiles of some great leaders, and guess what? They're all strong playmakers. It's really interesting how that comes through. I won't name the names, but fascinating. Two of the most successful agency leaders I've worked with in the GC Index are both very, very strong game change playmakers.
Do you think, I mean, we've both been a part of the communications industry for a long time as well. Do you think the technology that we have available to us now has helped some of those playmakers come to the fore? So we're seeing them more in businesses. Do you think that?
Yes and no, I think, Robin. I think sometimes technology is a crutch, and sometimes it's seen as something that becomes all important. So you put technology into businesses, and then the technology runs the business. And you need technology as a support to actually enable your people. And I think technology sometimes gets in the way. I've also seen in communication business and in some of the businesses I work with, frankly, where technocrats, they talk about there's old saying about the one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. And I've seen in many cases over the last 5 to 10 years, technocrats who know slightly more about technology being way over promoted into senior positions because they know a bit more about technology. Frankly, they know very little about people or leadership.
Interesting. And Coleville London, we're very happy over at TDA to partner with you on numerous projects and assignments. But tell the audience a little bit more about the business and the focus and how you're able to plug into leadership teams and help them these days, Steve.
Yeah. So we work in a number of ways. I mean, basically what we try to do, very simply, we try and help our clients be more profitable, basically. I mean, it's a very easy thing to say. And what we do by that is try to understand how we can help the business overall work better and be more profitable by getting more people to be more productive, more effective, and clear about what they do. And so that's about working at all levels. So we have a couple of products we work with. We work with the LMI suite of products, which is about helping people be more effective and powerful leaders. And that's from people that are first promoted to their first leadership position at quite sort of middle level. We have a number of programs that go into them and help them almost on the job. So it's not a theoretical piece of training. We go in and work with them to actually develop their knowledge about how to set strategies, set objectives, and work better with the teams around them. And we do that a lot with individuals at different levels, running kind of boot camp type things. We also are members and partners with the GC Index, which is becoming a tool we use more and more. It's an organometric, and it's helping what we talk about organizational intelligence. And that's all about helping leaders from CEOs and board directors understand where their energies and focuses lie. So we help them to build themselves to be better and more effective leaders. Also at senior levels teams, when we start to sit down with them and understand where they complement each other, almost get in the way of each other. Historically, many businesses hire people that look like themselves. So you've all got people with very similar skill sets, very similar behaviours. And there's nothing wrong with that, but actually what we see it creates very unbalanced businesses. What we can do with the GC Index is help people understand how to get complementary teams. And just one sort of anecdote, I work with a software startup a while back where all the founders were what we call game changers. They're all ex-Oxbridge, incredibly smart, brilliant people. They said to me, going through the process, the trouble with Steve is that we're too clever for our customers. Our customers don't understand what our products do. They're all game changers, right? They just want brilliant ideas. They had no way of actually sort of making sense of what they did. So they needed some strategy people and they needed implementer salespeople who could deliver strategy and take their products to market. Now, if they sat together just all as game changers, they won't make a success in the business. All right. So using the GC index, we've gone into that business and helped them build a broader based team with broader based energies, broader based skills, and now they're starting to sell stuff. Yeah. So that's just kind of one of the ways we help businesses.
And we're talking about tools and methods here. What you and I do for a lot of our time is really linked to advisory work and CPD. And CPD is something that I've been a huge promoter of for a long time throughout my early recruitment career into HR, into more board advisory. Why is it that CPD is so crucial for leaders, for individuals, for teams? Why is it that sometimes it's slightly overlooked in organizations?
Yeah, I think it's overlooked by many businesses. I think there's a number of reasons. I think there's one, it's seen as a cost.
Yeah.
You literally would just look at the P&L and say, can we, that's a cost, what do we get out of it? And people don't understand, they don't know how to actually estimate that. Actually, one of the things we do with OMI is very much talk about productivity, and actually you can track by that CPD the actual impact it has on productivity, which goes straight to the bottom line. And that's something we do very much at. But I think one of the problems also, and I've seen a lot with some of the leaders I work with, is that they kind of get to the top, they get to a level and they forget that they have to keep learning and improving. And one, that impacts them and their effectiveness, and I've seen that a lot. They kind of plateau and they just kind of stop for whatever reason. It's arrogance, ego, they think that they get busy, and as a result of that, they don't see the importance of it for their teams. They just kind of forget about it, and it's seen as a nice to have, and it's the first thing you cross off on the budget when you're reviewing it for next year. It's too easy to cross off. So I think part of the challenge, people like ourselves have, Robin, is showing the value of it.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's also a passion and a belief is, right? You want your people to do the best they can. I mean, you've either got to have a passion for that. It's not just a box ticking exercise. Do you want your people to improve? Do you want them to do a brilliant job? Where's your aspiration as a business?
Yes.
And if you truly have that, you have it. And if you don't, it's very hard to get it into businesses or to leaders, frankly.
And that's about setting. So it's a little bit like sport, isn't it? Sometimes it's about a business doing the basics right, setting the mission statement, the goal, bringing not just the leaders, but the leaders bringing the team along with. And I think that if I look at what TDA's done, we've invested in a head of internal learning and development. We have access to some of the best external platforms available to us. So I feel that I'm comfortable in the environment that we've created, that staff, teams, leaders have the access that they need. But if I look back to, where we were able to kind of calibrate it well was all the work they used to do with the IPA and their CPD program, which was particularly brilliant. Most of the gold and the platinum CPD agencies that had invested in it were able to show some of those improvements, some of those performances. And no great surprise that they tended to be the best.
I think your point there is aspiration. Do you want your business just to roll over and be all right, or do you have an aspiration as a leader and a leadership team to create, as I sort of said earlier, I think it's about creating a great environment. Do you want people which attracts great talent, that keeps great talent? There is if you're looking at profitability and staff retention is absolutely critical, and what keeps people, keeps people because they're learning, they're enjoying themselves, and again, there's another great quote is, what's the cost of training someone? Well, what's the cost? If you train someone and they improve and leave, there's isn't that terrible? Well, it's not, because if you don't train them, they're going to leave anyway. So you might as well train them and improve them and keep them for longer and hopefully, add value to what they're doing.
Yeah,
I think there's an aspiration and a kind of, you have to have a belief in this stuff, Robin. And not everyone does, by the way, and you and I both know there are some organisations we can work with, and they get it, and there's a big benefit and a massive difference we can make to them, and some that don't, or some that just play along with it. And you can
yeah,
feel that pretty early, actually, in the relationship, in
yeah.
terms of, are they serious about this, or are they ticking a box?
Look, we've talked about the GC index and why it's such a powerful tool, and ironically, part of the platform was born from a kind of an executive search and advisory
Yeah,
consultancy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
For our audience, when we talk about proclivities and understanding proclivities, what does that mean?
It's really it's 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 about understanding where your energy is and where your tendencies are and where you kind of, I always say when I'm doing people's profile, it's about understanding when you get up in the morning, what's the first thing you look to do, around your role and where your energy is. And so, for instance, I'm a strategist polisher. And in the mornings, if I've got three or four, client works going on, the first thing I tend to do is the work that's a strategy challenge, right? Because I love understanding the why, piecing together what's going on, what's the issue, how do we create a go forward, making sense of where that client's going. Uh, I'm a less strong implementer, so the things in my admin, the things, the repeatable processes, things like billing, unfortunately, those are the things I put a list of, lowest at my bottom to do, because I enjoy, my energy is making a difference, and I know I'm better at strategy, and I know I can make a difference out for my clients. I'm also quite a high-end polisher, and that means I love that continuous improvement. I love helping my clients improve their businesses. It's also a challenge to me because if you polish too much, you just drive yourself nuts, by the way. But yeah, so it's a balance. So when you talk about proclivities, it's helping an individual understand where they can make the biggest impact at work, yeah, and understanding the role they play with their team. So for me, I work very well with game changers. And because I'm a strategy and polisher, I help them make sense of what their crazy ideas are, and also I help to improve them because I challenge and improve them. When I work well with teams, we also have a bloody good implementer around because they make stuff happen and do it.
Yeah,
So in terms of what it means, it helps you understand it. It helps your self-awareness. And most people, when I go through their profiles, I would say 99% of people say, you know what, Steve, I sort of knew this, but I never thought of it in this way. My wife's been telling me this for years, by the way, but I never thought of it in this way. So it helps them reflect and understand where they make the biggest impact at work, um,
it's such a
and how
powerful
they
tool.
work better, and how they will work better for people. And the other beauty of it, I think, Robin, is that although proclivities is the wrong word, when you get into the language, which is playmaker, game changer, strategist, implementer, polisher, people get it in 30 seconds, right? You know, there's nothing wrong with psychometrics, and they're all fine, but they use, are you an I or a Q or a P or an R, or are you blue or red? I mean, after a day, you forget what those things are.
Absolutely, yeah,
People with GC will say, "Yeah, I'm a playmaker. That's it. I know what I am." And they tell the teams immediately, and everyone sort of gets it. It's
yeah,
very simple language. It's day-to-day language, and I've worked with teams that they actually have it on their email signature. So they
really,
tell people immediately this is what I'm like. So, I know, for instance, if I'm working with a game changer, if I then go to a game changer and talk about ideas, he switches off.
yeah.
You um, and it's like a shorthand. So it immediately has impact and effectiveness. And that's one of the things why I like about it. So proclivity sounds a bit fancy, but actually when you get into the model, it's super simple.
And what we're talking about is business transformation, leadership transformation, reinstilling motivation,
Yeah,
reminding people of who they are and
yeah,
how
yeah.
good they are.
Yeah, and more what we're seeing now with the GC index is it is used within transformational projects.
Yeah,
And as I say, we talk about organizational impact and organizational intelligence, because what you're looking at, I mean, every business's most important asset is its people.
yeah,
And they didn't have a tool that helped people understand it in this kind of way. So we talk about organizational impact, organizational intelligence, so not just emotional intelligence, but actual organizational intelligence, because you can actually see it and using a GC index, understanding right across your organization. where your balanced teams are, where your less balanced teams are, where your energies are in the right place. Can you move people around? Can you give people other opportunities? Can you make teams more effective? And going back to my original point about what we do at Coleville, which is helping organisations be more profitable and more successful, this hits the bottom line. So, talking about continuous personal development, this isn't just a nice to have, this is actually something that fundamentally goes right through your teams and can make an impact in like multiple ways.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, look, Steve, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Good. Yeah, great to speak, Robin. Good. Thanks very much.